Hello, I'm Benjamin B., and this is part 1 of a video about a meeting with cinematographer Peter Suschitzky. I designed and moderated this meeting, which took place during the Cannes Film Festival, with the support of Ingenieux, the French Zoom manufacturer, as part of their ExcelLens tribute to Peter Suschitzky. Peter's credits include The Rocky Horror Picture Show, The Public Eye, The Empire Strikes Back, Naked Lunch, Mars Attacks, Crash, A Dangerous Method, Cosmopolis, and Tale of Tales. I began by asking Peter about his first memory.
I can remember lying in a pram and under a tree in the garden and being fascinated by the moving shadows of a tree cast by the sun on the side of my pram. I have memories of my father, who was a photographer. He had his own lab at home, which was called the Dark Room, and I didn't know what happened in that room. And as soon as I could walk, I would go to that door and scratch on it and try to reach the handle, and pleaded to be let in. He let me in sometimes, and in that room, with its strange dim orange light, he held me in his arms and showed me a sheet of white paper in some chemicals, and slowly an image appeared on that white paper, and I thought that was magic, and I wanted to perform the same sort of magic, and slowly I learned how to do it.
The Public Eye, and it's about a photographer called Ouija.
Yes, he was a New York photographer, an emigre from Austria, which is where my father came from. His real name was Arthur Felig, and he specialized in crime photography. He had the reputation for arriving on the spot before the police. He had a police radio in his car. I'd forgotten all about this film. I hadn't seen it since I shot it maybe 30 years ago.
You said you used one big source, and this is a good example of the white shot here.
I obviously had film noir in mind, and this was probably the first scene of the film, and I decided to do it with one lamp and cut that lamp up into shreds, into many pieces, and I probably ended up with 20 flags and little bits of diffusion strip attached to the flags very often, which doubtless made it very difficult to get into the set and out of the set for the actors and for myself. But that's the result of using one lamp.
I think we sometimes call that phenomenon the forest of flags. Yeah. You create a forest of flags, but what's wonderful is you have one shadow and a kind of simple lighting approach, but very modulated. Huh?
It was simple, but it's time-consuming.
Okay, it works. And I like to think this as an homage to Prince, because this is Purple Rain.
But it wasn't, because I didn't know, and still don't know who Prince is.
Okay, I'll give you an album. It's always difficult to light rain, isn't it, to make it visible?
Yes, take some care. You have to take care to make it not too visible also.
I really like the portraiture on Barbara Hershey here in the foreground. As Barbara Hershey's character is looking, I love the way the background blue is working with the foreground. This kind of mixture of colors.
I've always liked to mix colors on some occasions, not all the time. I don't think one should do the same thing all the time. I think that's very important to avoid.
We'll come back to that. And it's not standard portraiture, because really from the side, the little yellow light in the background is really doing a wonderful job, I think. And then as you come into her, you get both eyes. And the eye light is so important. The sparkle. Another very difficult thing for cinematographers is hallways.
Yes, there are not many places to put lamps, because they'll be in shot. It's much easier today because you can rely on the practical sources to light the scene, but I was probably using a slow film, 100 ASA. I had to light everything.
And you say that you like German Expressionism. This sometimes feels a little bit like that.
Yeah, it does. It does. Dr. Caligari, yes.
Peter and I sometimes have disagreements, amazingly.
Very violent ones, yes.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things we disagree about is Peter thinks that this is his best film.
I'm not talking about my work. I'm fond of this film.
And I still believe that Crash is a better film than Rocky Horror Picture Show. A cult film, and it had a lot to do with gay liberation, really, didn't it? It was,
I guess so.
Yeah, it was an adaptation of a musical. This is a very particular style. I think you described it as a kind of comic book.
Comic book style, yes. I don't justify it at this stage. I promise you, whenever I see something of mine on the screen, even if it was shot a week ago, I say to myself, that's terrible, and I could do it much better today. I want to redo it.
Sometimes people ask for about motivation of the light. They'll say, well, where's the light coming from?
Or logic of light.
Yes.
And somebody once told me a nice anecdote about another director of photography who was questioned. He was asked, where's the light supposed to be coming from? And his reply was just, well, where does the music come from? You don't always have to worry about logic. It depends what you can see in the shot. If you're in a daytime scene in a room, the logic dictates that the light should come through the window. But if you can't see one of the walls, you can create a window of your own that's offset, so to speak. Don't hesitate to do that sort of thing if you think it suits the scene and the way the scene's going to play.
You were saying that the production designer told you, well, we don't have much budget anymore for our sets.
Yes, strangely enough, we were getting near the end of the production, which was a very long one. I think we shot for 23 or 24 weeks. This was going to be our last scene, or certainly our last set. He said to me, we're running out of money for construction. I have enough money to build a foreground set, but I can't give you anything in the background. And I said, well, don't worry, give me some black drapes and some steam and some smoke, and I'll do it with light.
This is also, for those who know Star Wars, the most romantic scene in Star Wars, which isn't saying much.
No, it's a very simple lighting setup. I don't have much to say about it. A lot of the light is coming from underneath, and then there's one side light, that's all.
Yeah. What I really like is the daring use of color.
The color was entirely my choice, and the director liked it.
You were saying that, or not for every film, but for some films, you try and find a palette of gels and so on that work for the film.
I like to take a day to test out colors, usually in combination with the actors and their makeup and costumes. It gives me an opportunity to explore and to feel what is going to work for the film.
And here's that romantic moment we was talking about. And I love the exchange here.
I love you.
I know.
Great dialogue, yes.
I love you, I know. But yeah, it's lovely. And again, this real contrast between this burnt orange and this almost purplish background blue. You had a first meeting with George Lucas about Star Wars, didn't you?
I did. He approached me about the first one of the series, and I went to meet him. And amongst my first words were, I have no experience in visual effects. So perhaps you should go and choose the man who shot 2001, Jeffrey Unsworth. And he said, yes, you're probably right, but he's not available. And I would like to consider you for the movie. But the studio didn't want to consider me for the movie because they thought of George Lucas as somebody with no experience. So they considered that he should be put together in partnership with a veteran cameraman. And they chose somebody extremely good. For the next film, George Lucas suggested to the director he'd chosen, Irvin Kershner, that he should meet me. And things did work out.
But you were still a little reluctant because of this VFX.
I still said the same thing. I have no experience in visual effects. He said, Lucas said, don't worry. You'll come up to San Francisco and we'll talk about that. And I discovered, in fact, that all the technical terms, which did intimidate me at the time, like rear projection, front projection, green screen, blue screen, painted mats, models, they're not so frightening when you come to practice them because they're actually quite simple. And to reassure one, there is always a visual effects person you can refer to on the spot. But in the end, you have to trust your eyes. And if it looks false, you have to do some more work. And if it looks correct, then shut your eyes and press the button and it's going to come out all right.
I did get this picture from a gossip magazine that said that you and Carrie Fisher were quite close on the set.
We were very close there, anyway.
Well, what's even more surprising is the next photo.
Yes.
I don't know what she's pointing at there, Peter.
I'm not sure either. We tried to invite her to come today, but I think she'd left town.
Yes.
I'm sure she would have thought of something witty to say.
But in any case, it sounded like there was a good ambiance on the set.